Welcome back, everybody, to another lesson in class. We are on lesson 21, and this lesson is titled Artistic Rhetoric Theory, How to Communicate with the World. So let's get into it. Well, when it comes to artistic rhetoric theory, we have to break down each word. Remember, in past lessons, we talked about the etymology of words. So let's get into it. What is art? Art, by definition, is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in visual form, such as painting, sculpture, producing works that can be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. That's pretty much the definition that I got off the internet, as well as that you would see in like a Webster's dictionary, so on and so forth. Now let's talk about rhetoric. By definition, rhetoric is the art of effective persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques, which you have experienced within creativity and logic parts of class. As I went through the different lessons, I had different ways of communicating using either entendres or what people would call shorthand, right? Or nickname shorthand. So when I combined everything together, I created ART, which is an acronym which stands for Artistic Rhetoric Theory. Why is it important? Well, without art, right, the complexity of art, artistic rhetoric theory, without the ability to have an artistic way of communicating effectively to an individual, you wouldn't be able to tell a story effectively, which is the way that we learn in society and how we remember things more effectively. So I'll give you an example, right? Using a combination of things. I'm going to combine one of my favorite animes, Bleach, as well as art and speech, as well as the spiritual world. So when I was seeing a therapist, so on and so forth, we ended up talking about creating what's known as a round table. And at this round table, you were able to bring in some of the people that you looked up to, so on and so forth, etc. One of the things I did was, though, was I also had attributes for every character that was at this table. One of those characters was Tony Robbins. Now, for me, Tony Robbins is a complex individual. However, he holds many different attributes, or attributes or characters that I assign to him, right? So if you're thinking of the TV show Bleach, you know Kenny or Kenpachi, who is one of the officers, kind of reminds me of Tony Robbins. He's this hard guy, so on and so forth, you know, ready for action, etc. And then he has this small little girl that's like, hey, Kenny, so on and so forth, kind of like his wife, Sage, who he loves so much, so on and so forth, that kind of balances him out over time, so on and so forth. But then again, I started thinking more and more, and I was like, you know, in life, one of the things people lose out of anything else is themselves. And that's something that Tony Robbins is great at helping people find, which is, well, what they lost, which is who they were. And in the spiritual world, you have, well, Saint Anthony, and you would say a prayer, oh, Saint Anthony, please come around. There's something missing and it cannot be found. And hopefully you would find whatever it is that you lost. Now, what I just stated as far as the story, how I positioned Tony Robbins to have this Bleach Soul Society squad officer rank, so on and so forth, within Bleach, known as Kenpachi, as well as Saint Anthony, so on and so forth, because of what he's able to do. Ironically, his name is Anthony, but what's it called? Those two attributes, those two characters in a fictional world combined together, for me, create Tony Robbins, and that's how I see him. Now, that would be my artistic rhetoric being put at play to try to get you to understand how I see different individuals at this table. Some people might see King Arthur, some people might see Leonardo da Vinci, and you get to ask these people at this round table what they would do to help you solve whatever problem you're going through. Now, this was a very fun exercise for me because I got to bounce ideas off with the different mindset of these individuals, but it wasn't how do I say this, as accurate as I would like it to be. So I took it a step further and I incorporated AI and told it to act as such a manner. And I created my own roundtable using AI. And then I was able, using all the information and access that it has to the data on the internet, to not only create this roundtable, but to get my answers for the problems that I had more effectively. And not only was it effective, it worked, right? So think about it, right? So when I see Tony Robbins, I see Kimpachi and I see St. Anthony combined into one, right? Not only is he a spiritual soul society warrior, but he is also a patron saint on the other side that helps people find what they're missing, which ironically would normally be themselves. So this is how I would play it out, and this is how I would describe it to an individual that asked me, well, what is artistic rhetoric theory? How do you apply it? Or, give me an example. So that's one example, right? Now, as you move forward in life, you get to tell yourself certain stories and certain things, and you also get to tell other people certain stories and certain things. And the question I have for you today is, well, are the stories that you're telling yourself and others the same? Because if they're not, then there's going to be a disconnect, not only when they meet you, but when you get into other and different environments with people that you told a different story to. This is why you should pretty much say the same story to yourself that you say to others, but not only to not create a disconnect, but so that when you go into an environment where everybody knows you, they know your story and they have a baseline to work off of, and it doesn't throw your energy off. Right? I mean, think about it. What did Bruce Lee say about expressing yourself or expressing oneself freely, right? He said, in order to express oneself freely, truthfully, and honestly. Now, that baby takes, a whole lot, right? Because when Bruce Lee was in his interview, he talks about a martial artist throwing a punch or a Tai Chi master doing Tai Chi, and it looks very slow and graceful. They are expressing themselves in a different manner without words. What artistic rhetoric does, it gets you to apply words in an artistic way using entendre, shorthand, whatever language you want to call it, so on and so forth, and combine it together so you can either get a lot of information across quickly, or you can speak in code, or so on and so forth, to other individuals that you're working with, that you're trying to resonate with, because everybody has their own language. If you remember in past lessons when I talked about the medical community, and I said if a doctor came in and said, oh, I had to perform cardiac bypass, so on and so forth, some people would understand it. Other people would know it as heart surgery. So if he came in and said, I had to do heart surgery, then they would probably take it easier than the cardiac bypass, instead of having to ask, well, what is that? And what does that procedure do? And so on and so forth. Because since people are scared of things that they don't know, they ask more questions. If you simplify it, they ask less questions. And one of the things I learned in life is the more simple you keep things, the more complex the brain will make it out to be in order for somebody to understand it. Because, well, let's just face it, over time, people's brains get calcified, and the things that that are easy look complicated, and the things that are complicated are actually easy. Weird how that works out. Now, I wanted to point out to you guys that this is not going to be a long class, or I should say a long lesson within class, but it's going to get you to start to understand where we're going with art and how we're starting to combine creativity and logic to create such a thing, right? So what is, or I should say, how to apply art in life? Well, the first thing you want to do to apply art in life, and remember, I'm talking about artistic rhetoric theory here, is you want to first seek to understand yourself. When I went on my journey, I literally went through everything. I went through numerology. I went through the zodiac signs. I went through the Chinese zodiac. I even went through other historical books. I went through 23andMe. I wanted to learn everything about me. I wanted to understand who I was and how I play a role in this world that we live in. Right? Then I searched on the internet for a couple things just to put some puzzle pieces together, and I had an epiphany. From there, Next step, what you want to do is you want to understand how you communicate best. Now, as I aged, I noticed that some people did not communicate the same. Some people were more auditory, some people were more kinesthetic, some people were more, how do I say this? Literal, right? Or literary, right? People, meaning that they would like to read words more so. So I experimented with poetry. And then I came to the conclusion that if I wanted to get my point across, I can ask people if they've seen a movie or TV show. And then I could go ahead and bounce examples off of that and use it as my soundboard to get my point across, because I could use reference points from movies and TV shows so that people can understand what it is that I was trying to tell them, because for some reason the language and the words that I was using was not getting through, because people only saw me through a particular lens, as they would say. The moment I would introduce the movie with certain actors, or the TV show, or the novel, or the book, so on and so forth, then it would take them out of context for a little bit of not just who Michael is, but and it would introduce these other individuals and characters to give them a better understanding of what Michael is trying to say. So that was a combination of things that I would use in order to figure out how I communicate best. Now, yes, this was difficult for me because not everybody watched movies or not everybody read books. Some people didn't do either one of those things, or TV shows. And I quite honestly wondered what it was that they were doing with their life as far as entertainment was going, because they didn't really hang out with anybody either besides work, eat, and sleep. So I was kind of questioning certain things there. But as I went on with life, so on and so forth, I realized that, yeah, this model works for me. I can use movies, I can use TV shows, I can use music, so on and so forth, to communicate, etc., or to create a synonym of what it is that I'm trying to say and how to communicate to others. Because remember, at the end of the day, people want to be felt, heard, and understood. Now, you can be felt and heard, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be understood. And the goal in life is to understand. That's where you get the juice out of life, right? You can hear and, you could feel and hear knowledge and wisdom, but to understand it means that you actually grab hold of it and you're able to do more with it, right? Last but not least, once you understand how you communicate best and you understand yourself, you want to invite others to understand you, right? Go out, go ahead and communicate with other people. This is what artists do in everyday life when they put their works out there, whether that be a movie, a painting, a video, so on and so forth. And they put their work out there, so on and so forth, and they invite others to do so. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, now what you can do is you can utilize AI to help you with what it is that you're trying to communicate. I mean, even if you're trying to still understand yourself, it has access to the internet. So if you ask the question correctly, specifically, you should get a better answer than the basic question that you would put into the system, right? If you tell AI, I need to make $1 or I need to make money, it could show you how to make $1, but you need more than that because you weren't specific. You didn't get the answer you were looking for. This is why I always tell people to be real specific with their words and be careful what they ask for, because they just might get it, but they won't get what they actually want or what they're wanting without being extremely specific. So I would implore you to go ahead and use AI. Now, some people that I've worked with, some people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis or on a week or month-to-month basis, and I told them about class, so on and so forth, they asked me this question. They said, why is it that science and spirituality come after art? And I said, I love this question. The reason why science and spirituality come after art is because you have to have creativity and logic to bring understanding to the art that gives birth to what inspires science and spirituality, right? Without creativity, you wouldn't be able to formulate the images and things that you needed to logically get communication across, whether it's verbally, auditorily, or kinesthetically, so that then science can understand the story within the art section, such as storytelling, so on and so forth, that inspires imagination, curiosity, and so much more to take effect, where people start to experiment. This creates a category of science because people are now doing more physical things and taking action upon the art. Now, after those things are done and said, when it comes to science and you start to combine art and science and putting that together, once things become unexplainable, you start to move into spirituality and you start to question the universe, what else is out there, the invisible forces, so on and so forth. But you wouldn't have that without art, logic, and creativity coming beforehand to bring understanding, as well as hearing it and knowing what to do along the way. So when it comes to art, there are different styles of art. What do I mean? Well, there's visual, audio, experiential, think Disney World. Then you have physical and mental. And then, of course, from there, you have advanced styles of art. And this would be your performance art or your live shows on Broadway that bring a performance together with music. So you have the auditory, you have the mental stimulation. It might be a little experiential, but not so much, so on and so forth. But it also has the visual within there, right? And of course, the interactive displays of art. Think of Banksy, or when you go to a museum, or somebody doing spoken word, etc. Right? Those things start to combine. And the reason why it's advanced is because you're starting to bring together more or one of those different styles together. Now, the most complex level of art creates magic. What do I mean by this? Well, if you've ever seen a magician perform, sometimes they include you into the effect. Now, this is not just a visual thing or auditory, it's experiential, because you now, as the spectator, get to be a part of it. The audience that's watching is also a part of it, but they're seeing it from a visual and audio standpoint, but they're still getting part of the experience. And then, of course, if they're incorporating you into the effect, that's the physical aspect. And then if they read your mind, or find something that you misplaced, or you selected a card and they find it because you signed it, so on and so forth, and you got verification, that's the mental and physical aspects all combined together. So you got all these different styles of art meshing together, and that is the most complex form of art, which brings magic, because, well, it makes people question what else. It makes people say, I want to see more. It makes people curious to, and how do I say this? It makes them want to pay attention, because it's so many different sensories of perception that are coming in. I mean, think about it. People are used to seeing and hearing one thing, but then hearing, seeing, feeling, and then mentally experiencing something, and then having something happen right in front of you. All those things that are happening not only creates a blender of misdirection for your brain, but also a stimulation for your brain that makes you go, huh. And some people actually want to enjoy the performance or the magic, so on and so forth, as they would say. And then, of course, there's another category of people that just want to try to catch the thing, the what's going to go wrong, or how the effect was done. And that's perfectly fine. Now, the people I like to work with are those who believe in magic, because yes, they may know how the effect works, but they're there to genuinely enjoy the show or the performance. And that's what matters in life. You have to enjoy the show. You have to understand what's going on. If you take time, and I'm going to quote Bruce Lee here. There's a part in the movie, I think it's Enter the Dragon, where he's training a student, and he says it's like the finger pointing to the moon, and he smacks the kid on the back of the head because the kid is looking at the finger. He says, don't look at the finger or you will miss all the heavenly glory. The finger pointing to the moon was just showing the direction in which that person was supposed to look to receive and obtain all the heavenly glory. But because they were so focused on the minute, i.e. trying to see what went wrong or to catch the magician, they missed all the heavenly glory above that they could have been witnessing, i.e. the magic of bringing everything together. So as we wrap up here in this first lesson of art within class, I'm notorious for doing this. So if you haven't seen me lecture before, if you haven't seen logic or creativity, at the end of every video, I try to show you how things come together and how numbers and whatever I'm speaking on connects to the rest of the world. So with the number 21 in numerology, 21 is associated with success, creativity, progress, and reduces down to the number 3, which represents communication, optimism, and self-expression. The things that we spoke about in this very lesson, self-expression as well as communication. And then, of course, the optimism from seeing magic happen and wanting more out of life, right? In mathematics, 21 is actually a Fibonacci number. And if those of you who have seen some of my work before know that I love Fibonacci, the Fibonacci sequence and all of it. Moving forward in culture and society, we have things like blackjack or 21, which people gamble. And ironically, at the age of 21, which is where maturity comes into play, or cognitive maturity based upon psychology, because in psychology at 21, cognitive functions such as impulse control and decision making reach more of a mature state as the prefrontal cortex develops further. And then, of course, when it comes to behavioral patterns and things like that, it takes about 21 days to break. What is it? Studies show that habits take about 21 days to form. It's a popularized concept by Maxwell Maltz. And it also depends on what it is that you're participating in that develops the habit, so on and so forth. So these are just a couple ways that the number 21 actually is incorporated into society today. However, it is affecting everything that we do. I mean, think about it. If you look at numerology, it simples down to 3. You have the 3 musketeers, so on and so forth, etc. But there's so much more out there, right? Think about the 3 stars on Orion's belt if you're looking at the heavenly glory. But I'll leave you guys with this. This is the first lesson of art within class, a way of thinking better. So this is the beginning of artistic rhetoric theory. I welcome all of you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next lesson. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and don't forget to hit that like button. Till next time, my friends, take care. Have a great freaking day.